In the years that I did not have God around, I was a thief, I was a criminal, I was not a good person. Part of the reason that I ran to the drugs was loneliness, it was depression, it was feeling like I wasn't lovable. And all of those things were so false, but I couldn't see it. I didn't know because I was so angry. And anger is the worst emotion a human being can have. I come from a good home. My parents gave me everything that I needed. I have a great family. Definitely not one of the people that you would ever expect to have the story that I have. I was well educated. I was straight A student in all honors classes, never missed a day of school. I guess I was kind of a nerd. But when I was 15, my mom took me to my grandparents' house down in Florida. That's where they lived at. And she told me that when we got home that she was moving out, that her and my dad were getting a divorce. And I saw it coming. It wasn't a super big shock. Of course it hurt, but I was okay with that. And we went back home. My mom packed up and she moved. She moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And the very next weekend, I flew up there to see her, to see how she was doing, seeing if she was getting moved in. And that's when she told me that when she moved out of my dad's house, she moved in with another man. I understand that it's her life and it's her decisions, and she was just trying to find happiness. The only thing that I saw was that my mom was cheating with my dad, that she wasn't faithful, and that really started to grow in anger. My whole life up until that point, I loved God. I went to church, went to a private Christian school. Every opportunity I could, I was in the Word, and God was a central point in my life up until that day. And that day, that is where I can pinpoint everything in my life that really started to turn. That anger just started growing and growing to the point where I would skip school on days that my dad wasn't there to make sure that I was leaving. I would start hiding from my friends. I didn't want to be around anybody. It really started making me grow a serious distrust for women. So that made relationships non-existent. I quit. I said, I'm done. I don't care about anything in life anymore. And this is probably 2 years had gone by at this point, and I have completely let go of God. I have completely let go of my family. I have completely let go of my friends. And, now I'm not in school. I'm not doing anything. And I started hanging out with some people that were smoking weed and doing ecstasy and things like that. And I didn't at first because I knew it was wrong. I knew I shouldn't be doing it, but you're a product of your environment. I'm a firm believer in that. And so I hung around long enough to where I started doing a little bit here and there. And one night I took ecstasy, and then the next weekend, I did more, and then the next weekend I did more. And then I realized I didn't have a job, and I needed these drugs. So what little money I have, I can buy some drugs and then sell them, and then I can afford my own habit. And next thing you know, I'm buying 100, and then 1,000. And then 10,000. And within a matter of 6 months, I'm talking to the guy that's making the stuff, bringing in briefcases of money. And I thought life was great. I thought that's exactly what I needed. I've got all the money that I could ever spend. And before you know it, there was no stopping what I was doing. I ended up getting pulled over, driving on a suspended license, and of course I got arrested. I was 20 years old, and I ended up with 7 felonies and 2 federal charges. And at the time I had money, so I bought a really good lawyer and ended up doing 90 days in a detention center. Almost everything was dropped except for one small possession charge. And I made it home, and now I'm a felon. And there's a very horrible stigma on anybody that's ever done drugs and has ever been a felon. And I started trying to apply for jobs. Nobody would hire me. I ended up lying on an application, got a job, worked there for a month. Background check came back, they fired me. I said, well, you know what? I know what I can do. And so I jumped right back into selling drugs, and 3 more years of it. And I'd gotten myself so far away from God that I didn't care. I didn't care if I died. I didn't care if I shot somebody. I didn't care about anything in life. I was just trying to make more money. I thought in my head that no matter what happened, nothing was going to happen to me. No matter what situation I was in, nobody was going to touch me. Nobody was going to hurt me. It didn't matter. I could do whatever. If I got arrested, so what? I'd buy my way out. No big deal. I was sitting in a room, and there was probably 10 or 15 people in it. And everybody was just drugged out and, laying out on the couch, passed out. And I'm like, is this really what my life has come to? Have I really put money and status and everything that came along with the things that I thought I was doing right in front of a decent life? And that night, I thought about what it was doing to my family and my friends that I didn't have anymore. And it hit me. And I prayed, God, I'm so sorry. How have I let my life get to where it is? And I'm at a point right now, Lord, that I don't know how to get out. I can't quit what I'm doing. I have no other option. I don't know what I'm going to do, but God, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to end up dead if I keep going. Please, please help me. The moment I prayed that prayer that night, God showed me how vulnerable I really was and how much I really needed Him and how little I could really do on my own. Within 24 hours of saying that prayer, I was actually driving home from the house that I was at, and I got pulled over and I got arrested. And I went back before the same judge that had seen me those years before. And he looked at me and said, Mr. Loving, I don't care who your lawyer is, you're going to prison. And in a way, that was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to hear. But at that moment, it was so much relief. I did 2 years in prison, and while I was in prison, I started reading the Bible again, and I started going to the church services that they had, and I really started thinking, what and why and how did I ever get from a straight A student to a drug dealer? There's no connection in that situation. I finally realized the things that had happened between me and my mom, the anger that I had for her was where I lost my way. And I called my mom. I called my mom that night, and we had a 2-hour conversation, and a very expensive one, calling from prison. And I told her how I felt. And I told her everything that had been going on and everything that had happened. And it was the craziest thing in the world. She said thank you. She was relieved. Please don't think that I'm blaming all of this on her, because I am my own person and these were all my choices. But she was thankful to hear it. Being able to forgive somebody means you have control over your own life. And that's the most important thing, is if you can't forgive something that somebody's done, you're giving them control. And you can't do that, because that's when you start making bad choices and bad decisions and letting anger seep into your life. And all of that is about forgiveness. If you can truly forgive somebody that's wronged you, then you truly understand what God does for us every day. Once I did that, from that moment, the entire weight of the world was lifted off my shoulders. I felt like a new person. I felt God in my life, and I felt Him in my heart, and I knew that I would be able to overcome what was happening. When I came home, it was totally different. I had the connection with my mom. I had the connection with my dad. I knew my life was going to be okay no matter what, because I had them behind me helping me. A very good friend of mine, Dennis Turner, he owned a body shop, and he hired me. Of course, I wasn't making a whole lot of money. I think I was making like $9 an hour, but it was a start. And I worked there for a few years. At this point, I have a 2-year-old son, and I knew that I needed to find something more stable, better, that was going to bring in a better income. Raising a child's it's not cheap. And on his 2nd birthday, his mother, her half brother, Joel, he owned the 2nd largest garage door company in the state of Georgia. But he said, listen, he said, I've really got a lot of work coming in this way. He said, if you want a job, I'll hire you. And he offered me like 3 times what I was making. Started learning the business, learning the ins and outs and dispatching and buying parts and things like that, and ended up branching out on my own. And now I'm the CEO of First Choice Garage Doors, and we're almost 7 years in business, and we're doing so well. To be a new creation in Christ, it's going from darkness into sunshine. The more I focus my life on God, the more good comes into my life. Every day I wake up with hope and happiness and just a feeling of pure gratitude for everything in life. My worst days are great days. No matter how bad the situation, I know I'm going to make it through. When I look back through everything that happened, I could see Him everywhere I was at, where I went to prison, the people that I was in prison with, the situations that I was put into, I was protected. And that's what really gave me my drive and my motivation to start living better and to start showing Him how appreciative I was of the things that I had in my life. I try to do it in the simplest ways possible. I try to be a husband to my wife. I try to be the best dad I can be to my kids. Before I had God back in my life, I never wanted kids, but I never would have been able to be a dad, ever. I have 2 amazing kids. I have the most beautiful wife in the world. Both of my parents, I have great relationships with. I look back through the last almost 40 years of my life, and in every situation, God was there. Because I have been blessed, I try to use my position in life to bless others. And I've found that the more I give, the more God gives me. And it's awesome. It's so awesome when I look back at everything that's happened and all the good that's come from everything that's happened. That's God. I know God, when God answered my prayer so I could tell this story. So I could be somebody that can help people that are going through that, whether it be, coming out of prison or dealing with addiction. It's all going to be okay as long as you keep pressing forward. And as long as I keep God focused right in front of me, everything falls into place. I'm Kellon Loving, and I'm living proof that we can overcome the worst of obstacles with God in our heart.